Greetings and salutations, friends, and you are watching the Lore Library, my first and only, for now at least, YouTube channel, where I, your storyteller, you might say, will be talking about various books and historical records from real human history, human mythology, and modern day fantasy and science fiction, as well as all things related. I started this YouTube channel because I always had a passion for talking. I like to tell stories, I like to hear stories especially, and I thought that I might find enough like-minded people on the internet to start a YouTube channel. And that's pretty much the summary of this channel. I want this to be the place where you can go when you're tired, when things are down in your real life, and when you're having a hard time. This will be the place when you can come, relax, and listen. If you, of course, don't mind my voice, which I'm sure some people will find objectionable, but I will try to compensate by really trying to tell these stories passionately and explaining them to you so that you can understand them. To elaborate, what spurred me to start this channel is probably the Witcher Netflix series, which is coming out in about a year, or at least that's the date we've been given now. And as a Slavic person and a person who grew up with the Witcher books and especially the Witcher games, I am quite passionate about the subject. And the Netflix series thus far, even though we don't actually know that much about it at this point, has already made some decisions that I find a little bit questionable and other decisions that I find very admirable. And I would like to share my opinions on this series with like-minded people on the internet. And I've also noticed a big gap in the YouTube lore market when it comes to Witcher history and videos. I mean, you can find some channels that occasionally mention them, but no channel that really, how would you put it, makes their living by simply explaining Witcher lore to people. And that is a little bit sad because, in my opinion, Witcher deserves to be up there with some of the most renowned fantasy series in the world, namely Lord of the Rings and Song of Ice and Fire, Aragon, and so on and so on. I mean, it is definitely one of my favorite fantasy series, and I know it is also quite popular in the West, but that is mainly thanks to the games. And I see that few people from Western countries are actually familiar with the book lore upon which the Netflix series is doubtless going to be based. And that got me thinking that maybe some people want to just go into the season blind, and I don't blame them. Hell, if I could forget the plot of the books and just read them again, I definitely would. But some people are probably going to want to have some backstory going into the series, and they might also want to compare it to the books whenever it comes out and to judge the quality, or maybe just to learn some interesting trivia about the source material. And there are also a lot of people who they would probably like some backstory to the games, because the Witcher games, of course, take place only after the Witcher book series is concluded, and they influence the games quite heavily in many ways that are not immediately obvious. So, you people who want to learn more about the Witcher books but can't for some reason read them yourselves, or you just don't like reading books yourselves and can't get audiobooks, or you just want someone else's opinion on the books if you've read them, you've come to the right place, because unlike other channels, I will try to not only talk about what I'm discussing currently, but I will also try to make it a little bit more interesting, more passionate, to throw in some of my own ideas and thoughts about topics and subjects, to speculate a little bit, to discuss it with you people. and so on and so on. Just put a little bit of personality into it, because you can go to any Wikipedia page and basically find all the facts you need, but that doesn't really give you the spice you're looking for, if you catch my drift. And this goes not only for The Witcher, but for anything and everything I will be talking about. These are I will often try to divide these videos into sections where I talk from a personal standpoint, and videos where I talk from a objective standpoint. That is, there will be a part where I will talk dry facts, and there will be a part where I will speak my own mind on the matter. In other videos, I will probably sprinkle it here and there with my own thoughts and opinions to make things a little more interesting, so that you're not just listening to me drooling on and on about when something happened for reason A, which caused reason B, and so on and so on. Because I personally don't like these kinds of videos. At least not when I'm trying to relax and just listen to a good story. I want the people who are talking who are telling these stories to be engaged, you might say, to really feel what they're saying, to not just say it, but to live it, you might say. Also, you will probably notice that I stutter a little bit in this video and just generally do not sound as polished as I would like to, and that is because I want this video to be spontaneous. I don't want this to be scripted like most of my other videos will, so you don't really have to worry about me speaking like this in most of my other videos. I will try to script them ahead so that they sound polished, and so that you don't have to try to decipher what I'm actually saying. This is just a video where I want you, my audience, to understand where I'm coming from and why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I think it's important to be straight with people you're going to be engaging with in the near future, and I do hope that you will decide to stick around after this introduction video and listen to what I have to say, basically. And in some of my later videos I might also seem a bit too melodramatic at times, or a little bit sentimental, and that's because I kind of am. I am a bit of a sentimental person, and I do try and sound melodramatic for theatrical purpose at times, but at the end of the day, it is mainly to improve the storytelling. It is mostly for the sake of the narrative. But at the end of the day, most of it is not sincere. It is sincere, but it is not how I generally talk with people. It is mostly because I do feel that many of the topics I speak about, and that will become especially apparent in my first videos, are quite a passion for me. They are something I feel very strongly about, and I think they deserve to be spoken about with passion. That is the general reason why I may sound a little more melodramatic than I really am, especially in my first Witcher videos. And that also brings me to another topic, which is a general lack of understanding of Eastern Europe and its history I notice with many Western audiences. I've noticed that many people see Eastern Europe as just a poorer version of Western Europe, especially in the Middle Ages. And I think it's fair to point out, especially with the Witcher series coming out, again for all those who will be watching, I definitely will, that Western and Eastern Europe are actually quite different in many aspects, especially in the historical aspects of their development. I think it is only fair to once again fill in the market gap in Eastern European history and mythology, which are quite overlooked on the internet. At least in my experience, you can find a lot of Western mythology, Christian tenets, Islamic beliefs, Norse mythology, and so on and so on. But you can't really find Slavic mythology anywhere. You can't really find Polish history, Hungarian history, Russian history. Well, you can kind of find Russian, but not the history of, say, Ukraine or Finland or the other former vassals of Russia. Speaking of which, this channel is wholly non-political, and I will try to keep as far away from any kind of real-world issues or politics as I can. Of course, if the matter we are discussing is political, I will engage in the politics of the subject, but not from a personal point of view, or at least I will try not to do that. I will instead engage from the author's point of view and what led the author to take the stance he or she took when writing about such political matters. But as far as my political beliefs and convictions go, I will keep them away with a meter-long stick at most times. Because I know that most people don't really want to have their entertainment ruined by politics. Apart from that, I think it is fair to point out what other topics I will cover in here. So, I've already mentioned The Witcher as a series, and I will intertwine with this series with some Eastern European history and mythology, especially Slavic folk tales and other similar subjects. And after that is concluded, I will definitely be moving on to other mythologies and cultures as well. I would really like to eventually cover Viking myths and Germanic tales. Celtic mythology is also one subject that I think is criminally undercovered on the internet. Egyptian mythology, perhaps. Greek mythology is kind of common on the internet, so I'm not sure how often I will be mentioning that. As far as historical periods go, I will definitely be covering all of Eastern European history eventually, and then I might move to some other less common historical subjects such as the Mayans, the Aztecs, for example, maybe even ancient Egyptians or ancient Chinese empires. Topics that are generally less discussed on the internet, because I know there are a lot of channels which cover modern day history and Western history. Those are probably the most common. I will be trying to move away from that to be a little bit more unique is perhaps the bad word, a little bit more original with my content. Because why cover twice what has already been covered once if you don't really have anything new to say to it? These are, of course, very, very long-term plans, which, if this backfires horribly on me and I end up with like 2 subscribers, I don't think will ever come to fruition. But I am an optimist at heart, so I hope that in a couple of years' time we will be covering ancient China. Other subjects I will probably cover on my videos from science fiction and fantasy are Lord of the Rings, Aragon, Elder Scrolls lore, A Song of Ice and Fire, Cthulhu mythos, and so on and so on. These are definitely videos I will eventually try to make, and as with The Witcher, be a bit more original, you might say, than just reciting facts you've probably heard already 100 times on other YouTube sites. I will try to be a bit more original with them. Apart from that, that's pretty much everything I had to say. Again, don't really take this video as a sign of things to come. This is just me being very honest with you, so that you can hear how I actually think and speak and what is my motivation for creating this channel. I definitely hope you stick around for the ride, because I hope this channel becomes at least a little bit popular. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in my first video.